So at the end of the last section, we saw this command select, which takes a text and, or in this case, a list of strings, and this other function in order to find all of the lines in the poem that have the word tapping in them. And this particular function, the thing that select is taking in this case, is what's called a pure function, and we're going to build up this idea one step at a time. So imagine that we want to define a function to test to see whether a string contains something. We could make a very specific function. So here I define this very specific function that says string contains tapping, and it takes a string, and then I use the string contains q command to test that string to see if it contains the word tapping. So let's try this out. We define it, string contains tapping. This is about tapping, so yes, that string does contain the word tapping. String contains tapping, and then we give it a string that doesn't have the word tapping in it, and the answer is false. Now this is very specific, and it's only actually testing to see if one word is in whatever string we give it. But it will still work inside the select command. So for example, if we give the select command raven text and this function we just defined, it can find every line that has tapping in it. So the select command takes a text and it takes a function, and that function tells it what to look for in the text. But the problem here, the way we've done this, is that we had to define one very specific function to look for the word tapping, which is not what we want. In Mathematica, anywhere that we have a named function, we can replace it with what's called a pure function. So to create the pure function, we go up here to the body of our function that we just defined, this part right here. I'm going to copy this, Command C, and then I go down here and I'm going to paste it in here, Command V, and you can see, if you compare these two lines, that in order to turn this named function into a pure function, we replace the variable with slot, which in this case we're using the shorthand, little hash mark, and we add the ampersand at the end of it to indicate a function. So this second thing here, this expression right here, is the pure function version of something that searches for, or of something that tests to see whether a string contains tapping. If we write this out in full form, we can see the example, we can see the function command here out at the front and the slot command here on the inside. I'm just going to leave that there for you to study, but I want to show you how we can use our pure function. What we do is we wrap it in parentheses like this, give it square brackets on the end, and then inside those square brackets we give it the argument that we're testing with. So this is about tapping, this is about tipping. So these two expressions here use a pure function to do what we did here earlier at the beginning of our lesson, or at the beginning of this section of our lesson, with the named function. And we can also use this pure function inside of select, which is what we saw at the end of the last section of this lesson. So this part in here is the pure function, and what it says is it says put the string into this part and then use string contains q to test to see whether it contains tapping. Now that we've created the idea of the pure function, changing our select statement to search for something else is as easy as changing this word. We could say string contains rustling like this, and we get the one line in the poem that contains the word rustling. Now pure functions take a little bit of work to wrap your mind around, but they're used in a lot of places in Mathematica, like the select command and the sort command, so it's worth getting used to them.